Have you ever noticed that the kinder you are, the more invisible your needs become? Do you feel drained after conversations where you're always the listener, never the one being heard? What if your kindness isn't the problem, but who you're giving it to is? It doesn't always happen in obvious ways. Sometimes it's subtle. Someone asks for a tiny favor, nothing major. Then the next time, just a little more. They inch past the boundary line, again and again. And because you're kind, because you were raised to be thoughtful, respectful, polite, you let it go. But slowly, something begins to shift inside you. You start feeling tired, not just physically, but emotionally. It's not a tiredness sleep can fix. It's a kind of soul fatigue, like you've become everyone's go-to person, everyone's helper, everyone's shoulder to lean on. But when you need someone, there's silence. No one leans in for you. If this resonates with you, you're far from alone. As we get older, it gets harder to distinguish between kindness and self-betrayal. We don't want to offend or hurt anyone, so instead, we swallow our own discomfort. We stay in draining conversations out of habit. We keep saying yes, even when every part of us is silently screaming no. And we know, deep down, that something about this pattern isn't fair. To us. In today's video, I'm going to open up about 5 types of people I stopped being kind to, and how that decision gave me back my energy, my time, and most of all, my peace. If you've ever wondered why certain relationships leave you feeling smaller, or why you feel utterly exhausted after specific interactions, this may be the answer you've been looking for. Before we jump in, let me ask you something personal. Have you ever had to walk away from someone? Not because you didn't care, but because caring for them was costing you too much, emotionally, mentally, or even spiritually? If so, I invite you to share your experience in the comments. Your story might just be what someone else needs to hear today. And if you're still in that place, still carrying the weight of one-sided kindness, this video might be the very first step toward reclaiming your peace. Let's dive in. Number 1. Chronic complainers. These are the people who rarely, if ever, ask how you're doing. They're not interested in your day, your struggles, or your joys. They only want a place to unload their negativity. You become their emotional dump site, and they don't even realize they're doing it. They always have something going wrong in their world. And when you try to be supportive, whether by offering advice, encouragement, or just a kind ear, it never seems to help. In fact, instead of lifting them up, the conversation leaves you feeling drained. These are the chronic complainers. At first, you rationalize it. They just need someone to talk to, you tell yourself, and because you're a compassionate person, you become that someone. Again and again. But gradually, a shift begins to happen. You start to notice that no matter how much time you give, how many uplifting words you offer, nothing changes. Their world stays stuck in the same gloomy cycle. And now, somehow, yours is starting to feel a little heavier too. Here's the truth behind that feeling. Chronic complainers aren't really searching for solutions. They're not trying to fix their problems. What they're often seeking is someone to absorb their emotional weight, someone to carry what they refuse to deal with themselves. And the kind-hearted listener? The one who always picks up the phone, who always says, "Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that." That person becomes their emotional dumping ground. And the cost? It sneaks in quietly, but it's real. You might start feeling tired for no clear reason. A subtle anxiety creeps in whenever your phone rings. A tiny voice inside whispers, "Please, not her again today." And then comes the guilt for even thinking that way. But here's what you need to understand. That guilt isn't proof that you're a bad friend. It's a signal, a quiet inner alarm letting you know that this relationship has tipped into something unbalanced. Your kindness is no longer helping someone grow. It's being used to soak up what they refuse to release on their own. When I was 68, I had a friend like this. Let's call her Carol. Every single week, like clockwork, she would call and talk nonstop for over an hour. Her husband was distant, her daughter was disrespectful, her neighbor? Passive-aggressive. Week after week, it was the same loop. And I listened, year after year, until one day I noticed something new. When her name popped up on my phone screen, my chest would tighten. I didn't want to answer anymore. Not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't carry it anymore. That's not friendship. That's an emotional transaction where only one side is doing all the giving. So I did something that wasn't easy. I set a boundary. I told her, gently and respectfully, that I needed to take a step back and prioritize my own emotional well-being. And no surprise, she didn't like it. Most chronic complainers don't. But the relief I felt afterward was incredible. It was like someone had taken a heavy coat off my shoulders. I could breathe again. I could think clearly. I could finally hear myself again. The truth is, being kind to people who constantly drain your energy isn't really kindness at all. It's something quieter, harder to name. It's self-abandonment. And the moment you recognize that, you begin to reclaim something precious, your peace. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with clarity. And clarity is its own form of kindness, one directed inward. Kindness to yourself. Let's move forward. Number 2, subtle manipulators. They don't shout. They don't demand. Instead, they smile. They flatter. They make you feel special. And somehow, without ever raising their voice, they get exactly what they want, even when it costs you your time, your energy, or your sleep. These are the manipulators, who operate in whispers, not noise. You'd never call them toxic outright. They seem too polite for that. They soften their requests with sweet phrases like, "I hate to bother you, but," or, "You're just so good at this. Would you mind helping?" Before you realize what's happened, you're driving halfway across town to do something they could have easily done themselves. You're canceling your own plans to squeeze into their schedule, all while they rarely, if ever, do the same for you. And here's the thing. Manipulation doesn't need to be aggressive to be damaging. In fact, the quiet kind, the kind wrapped in charm, guilt, and compliments, is often the hardest to recognize, and even harder to push back against. It gets under your skin in a way that makes you question yourself. Am I being selfish? Oh, maybe I'm just imagining things. Isn't helping them the right thing to do? That uncertainty? That's the hook. It keeps you saying yes, even when everything in your body is whispering no. When I was 72, I had a distant cousin, let's call him Mark, who was a master of this. He had a way of making me feel like I was his only hope. Fixing his printer, giving him rides, sorting through his papers, things he could handle but always needed my help for. And every request came with a compliment. "You're the only one I trust with this," or, "You just do it better than anyone." And so, I kept helping. Not because I had the time, not because I wanted to, but because I felt guilty. Guilt dressed up like kindness, so well disguised I couldn't see it for what it was. But once I did, once I saw how it was draining me, I started doing something different. I began saying no, not with anger, but with calm and firmness. And yes, it felt uncomfortable at first, like I was breaking some unspoken rule. But with each no, I felt a little stronger, a little clearer. And here's the lesson I learned. Healthy people respect boundaries. Manipulative people test them, push them, and cross them when they can. That's the difference. When someone consistently benefits from your discomfort, when their peace always seems to come at your expense, it's time to ask yourself, is this kindness or is this control in disguise? When their needs always take priority over your rest, your time, your energy, that's not kindness, that's quiet control. And it doesn't need to come with shouting or threats to steal your peace. Sometimes control walks in wearing a warm smile and a friendly tone. Letting go of subtle manipulators doesn't make you heartless or unkind. It means you've chosen clarity over confusion. It means your kindness is no longer available for guilt, flattery, or obligation to twist and turn. And once you've experienced that kind of emotional freedom, you start asking yourself, why did I wait so long? If you're still here watching this video, and these insights are resonating with you, take a moment to comment number 2 below so I know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do it. Just tap that button and turn on the bell so you won't miss the rest of this series. Your support really helps us keep making content that informs, uplifts, and protects your peace. Let's keep going. Number 3, chronic complainers. Every time you speak with them, there's something new to be upset about. A fresh problem, a recent disappointment, a new story about someone who let them down. And somehow, their life always seems harder, more unfair, and more tragic than anyone else's. Now let's be honest, we all have bad days. We all need to vent from time to time. Life can get overwhelming, and talking it out is healthy. But chronic complainers are in a different category altogether. They don't just talk about struggles, they build their identity around them. Misery becomes their story, and they wear that story like a second skin. If you stay in their presence too long, it starts to feel like it's your job to fix their problems, or at least soften them, or carry the emotional weight they refuse to deal with. But here's the trap. Negativity like that doesn't just drain you. It lingers. It sticks. When someone is constantly steeped in hopelessness and bitterness, it's more than exhausting. It's contagious. You might walk away from a simple phone call or a quick chat feeling heavier, more anxious, or just sad for reasons you can't quite place. Not because they were unkind. Not because they asked too much. But because their worldview, the lens they see everything through, begins to cloud your own. I had a neighbor once. Her name was Helen. And without fail, every time I saw her, it was a flood of complaints. Her daughter never called. Her niece was ungrateful. Her pastor was too loud. Even the cashier at the grocery store had looked at her funny. At first, I did what I always do. I listened. I nodded. I tried to be a good person. But over time, I noticed something strange. I would dread seeing her. I'd avoid the mailbox when I knew she'd be outside. The more I listened, the more she seemed to offload, as if my patience was permission to keep pouring. Eventually, I realized something crucial. She didn't want comfort. She wanted a companion for her misery. And I had unknowingly signed up to be that companion. I wasn't willing to keep signing up for that emotional burden. So, I began pulling back. Gently, but consistently. I kept our conversations shorter, visited less often, and started putting clear boundaries in place. And when I did, something unexpected happened. I felt lighter. Strangely, I even felt more optimistic. We often forget this, but emotional energy is just as real as physical energy. The people we surround ourselves with have a direct impact on it. Some lift us up, recharge our spirit, and leave us feeling alive. Others quietly drain us. Chronic complainers fall into the second group. They don't just occupy your time, they quietly rob you of peace. They plant little seeds of pessimism in your heart, and if you're not careful, those seeds take root. Choosing to take a step back from that doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've finally started caring about yourself too. It means you've stopped confusing endless patience with real love. And most importantly, it means you've recognized that it's not your job to carry the emotional weight of someone else's bitterness. That single realization can bring more relief and peace than any conversation ever could. Now let's talk about something more subtle, but just as draining. Number 4, the ones who guilt you into kindness. Some people don't yell. They don't make loud demands. They don't even seem upset. Instead, they guilt you. They say things like, "I just thought you'd care more," or, "I guess I don't matter anymore." And somehow, without ever raising their voice, they make you feel like you're failing as a friend, sibling, or neighbor, just for having a boundary. These are the people who've learned to weaponize guilt. They've discovered that if they make you feel bad enough, you'll fold. You'll show up when you're already on empty. You'll say yes when every fiber of your being is begging you to say no. You'll keep pushing past your own limits, not because they asked, but because you feel like a bad person if you don't. I remember a woman named Martha. She was in her late 60s, like me at the time. Soft-spoken, gentle, always polite. But she had a way of speaking that lingered in your mind long after the conversation ended. She'd say things like, I just don't have many people I can count on. But it's okay. I'll manage somehow. Or, you always seem so busy these days. And just like that, I'd drop everything. I'd cancel plans, shift my schedule, and put aside what I needed, all to prove I wasn't selfish, to prove I cared, to make sure she didn't feel forgotten. But over time, I started noticing something deeper. Every interaction left me emotionally depleted. Not because Martha was mean, she never raised her voice, but because I was always carrying the silent weight of proving my worth, of making sure I never looked like the bad one. Good, loyal, dependable. That's the image I was trying to maintain. But then it hit me. True kindness doesn't come from guilt. Real friends, the ones who genuinely care, never make you feel like your presence is a requirement to prove your worth. They appreciate you when you're there, and they understand when you're not. That was the shift I needed. So, I made a quiet but powerful decision. I stopped giving just because I felt bad. I stopped twisting myself into uncomfortable shapes to meet someone else's emotional expectations, all because I was scared of seeming unkind. And do you know what happened? I didn't become heartless. I became calm. I became clear. Kindness isn't about being endlessly available. It's not about sacrificing your well-being just to keep the peace. Real kindness is about offering what's honest, what's healthy, and what comes from the heart. Freely, not out of fear or guilt, but out of genuine care. If someone only values your kindness when it drains you, when it requires you to give more than you have, that's not love, that's control. If you're still here with me, watching and reflecting, drop a comment below with the number 4. I'd love to know you're still with us. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and hit the bell icon. Your support keeps this channel going and helps us continue sharing stories and insights that matter. Now, let's keep going. Number 5. The people who only come around when they need something. There's a certain kind of person we all encounter at some point. They're quiet when life is fine. You don't hear from them when things are smooth. But as soon as a favor is needed, as soon as a problem shows up, they reappear. Not with curiosity about how you are, not with warmth or interest in your life, but with a need, a story, a request. It happens subtly at first. You might even feel helpful. You might tell yourself, it's nice to be needed. But over time, a pattern emerges. You start to notice that the calls and visits only come when they want something. And that's when the realization hits. This isn't a friendship, it's a transaction. And you're the one always footing the bill. I remember a neighbor of mine, Gary. He was around 70 when we first met. And almost every time he stopped by, there was a reason. Hey, could you give me a quick ride? Know a good plumber? Mind if I borrow your lawnmower? Just this once? But it was never just once, and he never stayed to chat unless he needed something. Never asked about my day or sat down for a cup of coffee unless there was a favor wrapped around it. Eventually, I started connecting the dots. I realized it wasn't about friendship for him, it was convenience. And so I began saying no. That first no felt awkward, even a little selfish. But then something shifted. I felt lighter, more respected, more in control of my time and energy. I felt lighter, almost as if I had finally shut a door that had been creaking open far too long. It wasn't dramatic, just a quiet, welcome relief. And the truth is, it's not cruel or cold to stop giving to people who only know how to take. It's actually wise. It's a sign that you've started respecting yourself enough to recognize what real connection looks like. Healthy relationships are a two-way street. They're not built on what you can do for someone. They're built on mutual care, shared time, and real presence. When you stop being the emergency backup, the free ride, or the just this once helper for someone who only values what you provide and not who you are, something beautiful happens. You make space. Space for people who genuinely care. People who show up not just when they need something, but because they simply enjoy being in your life. Being kind doesn't mean you must always be available. It doesn't mean your time, your energy, your presence should be on call for those who vanish the second they've gotten what they came for. Releasing those one-sided relationships those quiet, polite drains on your spirit gave me something unexpected. More space for peace. More space for connection that truly feels like connection. Final thoughts. Aging has a funny way of sharpening your vision. Not just your eyesight, but your inner clarity, your ability to spot patterns, to recognize emotional costs, and to evaluate the real impact of your kindness. As I reflect on it all, I don't regret helping people. I don't regret the late-night talks, the favors, or the time I gave so freely. But I do carry some quiet regret for the moments I stayed too long, where my presence was taken for granted. For the times I confused politeness with true peace. I regret not learning sooner that saying no doesn't make you heartless. It makes you honest. If you've always been the nice one, the dependable one, the person who quietly carries everyone else's weight without asking for anything in return, I want you to hear this clearly. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to protect your peace like it's the most valuable possession you have. Because it is. There is nothing selfish about setting boundaries. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do is become less available to people who only remember you when they need something. This isn't bitterness, it's awakening. It's the moment you stop apologizing for honoring your own emotional well-being. And when that shift happens, when you begin to live with clarity, rooted in confidence and self-respect, everything feels lighter. You don't need to chase after validation. You don't need to shrink yourself or explain your worth. You stop accepting crumbs and start expecting mutual care. And for the first time in a long while, you can finally exhale, deeply, freely, peacefully. I'm not 34 anymore, and I'm not 54 either. I'm 74. And if there's one life lesson that's brought me the deepest peace in this stage of life, it's this. Not everyone deserves your kindness. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table. And the people who truly value you will never ask you to trade your peace just to earn their affection. Thank you for spending this time with us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of this message resonated most with you? Leave a comment and let us know what insight you're taking with you and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your voice matters to us, and your stories inspire this entire community. If you found this video helpful or comforting in any way, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it too. Your support allows us to continue creating content that informs, uplifts, and empowers. Wishing you continued health, happiness, and deep peace. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can walk this journey together.